What is the Schomburg Center? To me, it is home. The place where we come to see who we really are, not just somebody else's reflection of who we are.
The Schomburg Center is a place of culture, it's a place of history, it's a place of knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is a repository of all of the things that has documented our sense of worth as a people.
For me, that means that it is a place of immense power.
The Schomburg Center is a public research library and a cultural institution.
For the study of the Pan-African world. It is perhaps the best in the world.
My Schomburg Center is Arturo Alfonso Schomburg.
Arturo Schomburg said, Black history and culture and intellect exists at a time when most people didn't believe that. He collected those evidences, and that became the beginning of the collection.
And it has expanded and has grown to where it is now a world-class institution.
It holds over 10 million items.
There's no parallel anywhere that brings to light what we as people of color have done, what we continue to do.
Black culture is all of culture. The universals that animate everyone's life happen here for all people.
The Schomburg, for me, is one of the center pillars of Harlem. When I started the journey of finding out about Red Rooster and Harlem, the very first place I went to was the Schomburg.
Researchers from around the world come and use what we have here.
I could not have written just about any of the books that I've written without the Schomburg Center's archives, resources.
The Schomburg Center is much more than a library. We encourage lifelong learning and exploration.
The Junior Scholars Program is a Saturday program with students from 5th grade to senior year in high school to help them learn about Black history and culture.
Learning about my history is important because it teaches me who I am.
The Schomburg Junior Scholars Program is going to do nothing but uplift them.
So many talented and brilliant people have walked the corridors of this amazing institution over the years. From Octavia Butler to Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, Ella Fitzgerald, Alvin Ailey, and Harry Belafonte, who graced the stage in this room of the American Negro Theater.
This place evokes great memories. It was a gift to us in our community to really try to find that space to reflect expressions of Black experience. I just knew that the environment, what I saw these young African Americans doing, was a place I needed to be.
What is my Schomburg Center? I'm standing here at the Cosmogram, which underneath holds the ashes of the poet Langston Hughes. On the evening when this Cosmogram was dedicated, people began to empty out of the auditorium. A jazz trio struck up, and to my amazement, Amira Baraka went over and asked Maya Angelou for a dance. And they started to dance on top of the Cosmogram, on top of the ashes of Langston Hughes, and I felt what a fitting way to kiss the memory of Langston.
The Schomburg Center is a research institute and a library, but it's so much more than that.
There's something going on every day.
So many amazing people come here to talk about their creative craft, to share what inspires them. The Schomburg Center's collections help to tell stories even beyond our walls.
The Schomburg Center is here in this exhibition at MoMA, One-Way Ticket, Jacob Lawrence's Migration Series. We depend on the resources of the Schomburg to enable us to tell this story. Thinking about the implications of the past on the present is absolutely crucial for understanding the next steps, understanding what we have to do to go forward.
We today have the responsibility of making sure that new artists and activists, new scholars and poets know that this place continues to be a resource and a source of inspiration for the work that we must continue to do.
The Schomburg Center is knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is education.
The Schomburg Center is home, it is family, it is foundational.
The Schomburg Center is inspiration.
The Schomburg is with me in everything that I do.
Community, inside and out.
The Schomburg Center is us.
The Schomburg Center is you, and we invite each and every one of you to find your Schomburg Center.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for this special live stream event with Ibram X. Kendi and Loveis Wise, presented by HarperCollins Children's Books, being streamed from the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture located in Harlem, New York. My name is Novella Ford, and I'm the Associate Director of Public Programs and Exhibitions here at the Schomburg Center. And it is always a pleasure to have Dr. Kendi in our house. I feel like we've been on this journey with him since his first publication, and it's so exciting to see all of the work that he continues to do. I will not take up too much of your time, but as we begin to wind down Women's History Month, I want to mention the name Augusta Baker, who began her career in 1937 at the 135th Street Library that has become part of the Schomburg Center's complex of buildings. As the children's librarian, she led the efforts to collect children's literature and encourage writers and publishers to create such books that depicted diverse experiences of Black people and communities. And tonight we get to hear from some of those who continue in that tradition as writers, as editors and publishers, illustrators, and more. Please take this time, for those of you who are here inside of our auditorium, to silence your phone or at least put it on vibrate. And also please use hashtags that will show up on the screen shortly to shout out folks on social media. Also, as COVID protocols begin to ease all across the city, you will begin to see those protocols here at the Schomburg change as well. But for now, we ask that you continue to wear your mask for the duration of the program out of respect for our panelists, your seat neighbors, staff, and volunteers. Tonight I get to introduce Renee Watson, who is our neighbor and our friend, and I just want to always thank Renee for activating Langston Hughes' home through her I2 Arts Collective. For those few years, it was so great to enjoy poetry and readings in Langston Hughes' home, and it's always a treasure to see what Renee is up to. Renee Watson is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of books for young readers. She has received several awards, including the Newbury Honor, Coretta Scott King Award, and an NAACP Image Award nomination. Many of Renee's books are inspired by her childhood growing up in Portland, Oregon. Her writing explores themes of home, identity, body image, and the intersections of race, class, and gender. She has given readings and lectures at many renowned places, including the United Nations, the Library of Congress, and the U.S. Embassy in Japan and New Zealand. Her books include the Ryan Hart series, Ways to Make Sunshine, Ways to Grow Love, Ways to Share Joy, Some Places More Than Others, an acclaimed picture book, and the 1619 project, Born on the Water, co-authored by Nikole Hannah-Jones, just to name a few. Now, I know there's just a few of us here, and I know that those who are watching online, but please send a virtual round of applause, and please warm up this space as much as possible as we welcome Renee Watson to introduce tonight's program.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. You can talk back to me. Yeah, thank you. I am so excited to be here tonight to introduce this program and to talk about the good news that you are going to learn about. And I want to say hello to everyone in the virtual world as well. So I'm going to introduce Ibram X. Kendi, who is the Andrew W. Mellon Professor in the Humanities at Boston University and the founding director of the v.2 Center for Antiracist Research. He is a National Book Award-winning and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Kendi was awarded the 2021 MacArthur Fellowship, also known as the Genius Grant. Loveis Wise is an illustrator and designer from Washington, D.C. They are currently based in Los Angeles, and their work often speaks to themes of joy and liberation. Their work can be found through The New Yorker, Google, Adobe, and the New York Times. Their debut picture book, The People Remember, written by E.B. Zaboy, was a Coretta Scott King Honor book. You can find them online at www.loveiswise.com. Tracy Sherrod is the Vice President and Editorial Director of Amistad at HarperCollins. Luana Hori is a Senior Editor at HarperCollins Children's Books, working with Ibram and Loveis. Please welcome them as they all come out. So I want to jump right in and get to this good news. Ibram, we have gathered here tonight because you have something to share with us. So I'm going to turn it over to you and ask if you can let us know what's going on with you.
Wow. Well, first, Renee, I just wanted to thank you for joining us this evening. Your recent book, Born on the Water, is just a national treasure, and I'm just thankful to be in this space with you. But this, I guess, for me, I think of many ways in which we can sort of honor legendary authors who are still with us with their words, even if they're not with us with their presence. And to me, one of the ultimate ways I think we can honor, a legendary writer is to adapt her work. And so I am excited to announce that I'm going to be adapting 6 children's books based on the work, the treasure trove, really, of Zora Neale Hurston. And I think, like many people in the United States and really around the world, of course, Zora is, one of my sort of writing models and role models. And as a girl dad, as a father, as a lover of children, I've always wished that we could bring Zora's work to the youngest of people, especially in this moment, especially in this time where there's sort of a narrowing of literary offerings. And so I'm just excited to be here with these incredible people to announce this project. And the first book in this series is entitled Magnolia Flower.
This is so exciting to me. I just feel like, especially that it's happening in this moment and right now, and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about why did you decide to do this now? Was it an idea you've had for a long time? Did it hit you out of the blue? What was the inspiration behind saying, I think I want to do this and I want to do this now? So let's pause because we just had a moment that, so I want us to take this in. This is the amazing artwork from Loveis Wise. So let's just take a moment and take it all in. I definitely want you to talk about your process and making this beautiful, beautiful cover. I cannot wait to see what else there is to see in this book. But yeah, that is amazing. So this is the cover reveal for the book. So yes, let's talk about the inspiration for this, and then I'd love for you to talk about your process in creating the cover.
Well, I'll say very briefly, because I want to get to this view, that for me it was just, I read pretty regularly to my daughter, particularly at night. And I typically read before I go to sleep. And just the idea that I wanted her to read Zora Neale Hurston, right? I wanted other children to read Zora Neale Hurston, and I think it wasn't really anything more sophisticated than that. There's so much of her work that I think people could be and should be reading, the youngest of people, right? That I think it's what really drove me and has motivated me. And I think also in this moment where particularly African-American literature is under assault, this is the moment in which we have to bring back into the forefront our legends, our heroes, our sheroes, like Zora Neale Hurston.
Absolutely. Can you talk about making the cover, and also just welcome to Harlem. Loveis came in from LA, and so I'm just excited to have you in Harlem, and I'm glad that we could do this in person with you. Can you please share about your process in creating this masterpiece?
Thank you so much. It feels so beautiful to be here and to be able to be on the stage with so many amazing people I admire. This book came with a lot of research, just like really diving into nature, and just Black history, all the things that I appreciate. And I really wanted this process to feel like me really diving deep. I think at the same time of working on this book, I was in New Orleans, so it was just like kind of perfect climate for working on a book like this, because it's just like all like Black Southern history as well, and so much lush nature. So I really wanted to kind of pull in those elements and also look at different cultural archives and photographs that explore different like indigenous and Afro-Indigenous cultures too, and the intersections of those two communities. And thus this cover was born. I really wanted it to be very playful and loving like Magnolia is, and just very vibrant.
Yes, it is indeed vibrant. Ibram, how did you feel when you first saw it? What was that experience like for you?
I was blown away by the beauty. I mean, what Loveis did. I mean, I just did not, I was just trying to scratch my head. And I think for me, that's just Black creativity. And I think that's what we're honoring through the series, because of course Zora's, I mean, the way in which she was able to dig deep in the well of, creativity and beauty and love, right? I think so I was just simply blown away.
Luana, can you talk about why this project with these artists, and also for people who might not be familiar with Magnolia Flower, can you give us the plot, the rundown of the story?
I'll start with the plot. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and I feel so honored to be on the stage. So Magnolia Flower, in our version and the adapted version, it's about a young couple. It starts with a brook, because water carries our stories, and the brook is telling a story about a young couple. There's an Indigenous woman and there's an African American man, and they have this beautiful daughter, and her name's Magnolia Flower. And Magnolia is a free spirit, and the rest of the story the brook tells is about her coming into her own. It's about her finding freedom, finding love, and then it all culminates at the end in this very beautiful scene in which another couple is sitting by the brook, reminiscing about love. So it's a love story. There's a lot of drama. There's a little bit of humor, a lot of lush nature, and just the perfect story, I think, to start this series of books that will cover freedom. And how did it happen? Well, Tracy's a really good friend of mine, and it started with a letter. And Ibram wrote this really beautiful letter about his daughter and reading stories and wanting to adapt them. And the Trust, the Zora Neale Hurston Trust, who is just amazing, they were absolutely on board. And they were like, any story you want. And so that's how the project started. It started with a letter, and this want to continue to, breathe life into the people that have breathed life into us, and to honor our ancestors, and that's pretty much what this is.
What's so special to me about this is that this is the children's book, for Zora's work, but also Amistad is doing amazing work, honoring Zora's legacy and making sure that that is preserved. And I would love for you, Tracy, to talk about everything that you are doing that is giving such tribute and honor to Black literature in general, but especially to Zora. And then why do you think it is important to carry that on to younger readers?
Okay, thank you, and thanks for having me, everybody. I love Zora Neale Hurston's work, and we at Amistad are just like thrilled and just thoroughly passionate about working with the Trust and honoring Zora's work and repackaging it to make it beautiful. I think we have slides for that. And so we've been doing some repackaging, and later we're going to be adding some new introductions to some of her work. You know, the trust is amazing to work with, as Luana said. So giving, so knowledgeable, and as is the trust agent, Joy Harris, who I interact with a lot. And so every year we do something different for Zora. We celebrate her birthday in January, January 7th, and this year we have a lovely tote bags in honor of her. And here are the slides. This shows you, previously it was the front cover of the repackaging, and then this is the back. The previous slide was the first, and then this is the back, back side of the books. And so what we're doing is we've invited African American artists to decide which book that they wanted to do a rendering of art for. And they all chose different ones, and they all gave us just this amazing original pieces. And then on the inside flap of the book is a description of why they selected that book, and also a bio of that particular artist. At Amistad, we're trying to bring together, all of our cultural and creative endeavors, as a people. So the cover, the inside, and hopefully, the people working on them, and so it's just been amazing and phenomenal. And I love Zora's work, and I particularly love it because Zora is so Black loving.
Yes.
And you read her, it renews you after, going outside, because you can't even go outside anymore without something, happening these days. And so I just feel like it's never too young for us to begin to love ourselves. And so that's why I was thrilled when Ibram called to say, hey, can we do this? And I said, well, let's see, let's check with Joy. And it was just wonderful. It's been great seeing the book come together and seeing Loveis's work, and it's just phenomenal. I love magnolia magnolia flowers, listen to me. And so, yes, and so that's why.
Did any of you read Zora when you were young? Like, how old were you all when you were introduced to Zora's work? And do you have any memory of it impacting you in any kind of way?
I could take that first. I was in high school, and it was the Gilded Six Bits, and the Six Gilded Bits. And that's a story, a couple again, and it's a short story. And she asked us to read it and to talk about deception. That's sort of how she pitched it. And I was like, well, to me it read like unwavering devotion to one another, right? And so it was like the first time that I encountered Zora and had to defend her in a classroom, and it was beautiful.
Anybody else?
Well, me, I didn't start reading Zora until, I believe, English 101 class at FAMU. And so the benefit of going to an HBCU, my professor assigned Zora and James and the Women of Brewster Place and all these sort of classics, and I think that was my first exposure. Of course, we read Their Eyes Are, of course, Watching God, but I didn't really read Zora until I was researching for Stamped from the Beginning. And I was struck by, during this period from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, while other Black writers were questioning African American culture, were even denigrating, in some cases, Black rural Southern culture, Zora was standing tall and standing firm and affirming sort of the humanity of Black folk in general and African American culture, and arguing with people like Richard Wright, and others, and also was not just sort of defending the cultures of Black rural folk, but even collecting it and preserving it. And so, of course, we talk about her as a writer and a storyteller, but she was a scholar, too. One of the greatest scholars in history, and we know so much about Black people because of Zora Neale Hurston.
Anybody else?
I remember learning about Zora when I was in grade school, of course, but really reading her in my early 20s. And I think it started with Their Eyes Were Watching God. And I remember reading that story and was like, oh my God, this is what authenticity looks like. Like, her voice is so clear. Like, I could hear her almost even in reading anything by her. And just like how comedic she is and just the way that she speaks reminds me so much of like my grandmother and her grandmother and so forth. Like, I feel like I'm reading lineages in her words. And that was very inspiring to me, especially as someone who wants to write at some point in my life, But
yeah, it's always powerful when you're reading something and you feel like the author is writing for you, and you really, I hear the people in my neighborhood when I read Zora. I hear my aunts and the folks at my church, and it just feels like family, and it feels like we're coming together to share stories every time I read her. And so, yeah, I totally get that connection that you feel that kind of makes you come alive. It makes you feel like you belong in books. I feel like reading her was a validation for my story, for sure.
And if I could say very quickly, I think as writers, we think, particularly as scholars even, we think about, intellectual traditions and ideas, but there's also sort of a tone to books, obviously, and if there's anything I've learned from Zora is I want readers, particularly Black readers, when they read my books, to feel as if I wholeheartedly love Black people.
Yes.
And Zora, like, you read Zora, she loved Black people and all our imperfections, right? And I wanted, I want readers to feel the same, and I would hope most Black writers would want their readers to feel that sort of when they're reading their work.
Amen to that. Amen. So I am so curious. I mean, do you want to answer?
Sure.
Oh,
I'll be glad to.
Sorry.
I was, we didn't read very many Black authors in the schools that I went to coming up, which was a shame. And so once I did find some, I just went crazy looking for more and more and more. And I didn't come across Zora until I was in my late 20s. And it just made me feel seen. And I was just enthralled with the language. It was Their Eyes Were Watching God was the first. I just loved the vernacular, the way she used it, and the rhythm of it, and the way it's, a full body experience, not just for the ears, it's more than that, Yes. So it was just very, very powerful, and then I just kept looking for more.
So I'm looking for more. First of all, I want to read this, but also a little birdie told me that there might be some other things happening with this. So can anyone talk about what's next? Even though this is next, but what is after the next?
Yeah, this is next. And like everyone said, she has so much range, Ms. Zora Neale Hurston. And so the next one, we can't say too much about it, but it's very colorful, and it's for the younger set. And within the selection of books, there is nonfiction, there's humor, and there's the love stories. And then we're retaining a lot of the beautiful vernacular, the language. And so the next one, it's for the babies, and that'll come out at sometime next year.
Awesome. So there's more to come, so stay tuned, stay tuned. So we just wanted to share this news with you all and celebrate the fact that this is happening. And I can't help but to think about, we're talking about Zora, we're in Harlem, we're in the Langston Hughes Auditorium talking about Zora in Harlem. And that just feels very special to me and important, especially in this moment of what is happening in our nation. And so I wanted to bring Zora's voice into the conversation and into the room before we go. This is a popular quote from her, but when I'm thinking about creating space for our stories, carving out space for us to tell our stories the way we want to tell them. I'm so thankful for publishers like Amistad, for HarperCollins, who's making sure we're preserving these stories and giving Black authors and illustrators the freedom to write and to make and create our stories. This is Zora from How It Feels to Be Colored. This is 1928. I am not tragically colored. There is no great sorrow dammed up in my soul, nor lurking behind my eyes. I do not mind at all. No, I do not weep at the world. I am too busy sharpening my oyster knife. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Our virtual guests who are tuning in, a very special thank you to HarperCollins, to the Schomburg Center, of course. And please know that the book is available for pre-order now. So as soon as you log off, say goodbye, you can pre-order the book, and it will be in stores September 6th. Thank you all so much for coming tonight, and thank you all for your brilliance and for what you do for children. Thank you.
Thank you.